Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us again in the Data for God series. It is my absolute pleasure to be able to welcome one of my friends to the actual series, Michael Rosenberg. Just to give you guys a little bit of a background on Michael Rosenberg and his wife Kelsey have been married for 8 years and live in the Raleigh area. We actually go to church together. Now, Michael is a math teacher at the Cary High School. Now, that hurts me a little bit. I'm a Southeast Raleigh kid, just throwing it out there. As well as the varsity swim coach for both men and women's programs. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his family and friends, photography, and going to the movies. So, Michael, welcome to Data for God, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, bud. No problem at all. So, okay. That is sort of the formal side of Michael, but let's help the audience get to know the other side of Michael a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your journey of faith.
Absolutely. So I grew up in the Raleigh area, grew up in Cary, and went to church with my mom and my siblings. I've got a brother and a sister. And when I was in sixth grade, we had this program at my church called ASAP. It was the After School Activities Program.
Yep.
And two of my best friends and I started going to that on our own on Tuesdays. And that was really the first time I initiated going to church on my own, not just going to things with my family.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And probably in high school and then throughout college, really started to do things on my own even more. I found out later in life that I'm a very prayerful person. I'm not so good at reading and memorizing verses, but prayed a lot. Actually met some guys in high school through like a FCA and a Bible study, and I'm still close with two of them. And then prayed a lot about where to go to college, and ended up that's where I became a teacher, and really got to know Kelsey, even though we were at different schools. A lot of history there, but yeah. So and now I just started working with TCC to help produce the Sunday morning services, and I'm a community group leader, and have been doing that for about 6 months.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I don't know about you, but some people are surprised when I tell them that I'm both a Christian and I work with math, numbers, and data. Do you have any experiences that are similar to that?
With education, yes, and with my pre-pharmacy degree that I was seeking originally
Did
at
not
Campbell,
know that. Nice.
absolutely, yeah. So a lot of the science classes that we took would bring up discussions that seemed in the moment to contradict religion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But honestly, what I would say is after taking all of the things that I did, because I went all the way through the anatomy courses, the organic chemistry, all that stuff. It wasn't just the first introduction to chemistry.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen points towards a creator and towards God, because it constantly amazes me how perfectly everything
Yeah.
on earth and in our bodies has been designed and stuff like that. So I do think that we as people who are, researching all of these topics can definitely have issues with interpreting stuff and looking at the science or the math. But that's where I land. I definitely have gotten those questions, and it does seem like there are a lot of people that have, views that are hard to balance, like between science and religion. So yeah.
No, you're exactly right. I have a buddy who's an astrophysicist, and it's one of those things where he always says, when he can actually get down and see the idea of like nuclear fission and things like that, seeing things at that microscopic level leads him to believe in only anything but God, right? Like it's like he believes in God solely because he can get down at that level and go, there's no way this is random. So I'm fully with you on that. Okay. Follow up to that last question. All righty. If this sort of helps you tie things together in the form of a creator, then how do you sort of connect that idea to God and just math in general? Or is that sort of the way you connect God and math?
That's a good question. I think for me, one of the things I try to impress upon my students, because I have a lot of students who do not love math and are
I don't know why.
very
I wouldn't have been one of those. I'm just throwing it out there. I wouldn't have been one of those.
yeah. So they a lot of them are shocked when I say, like, you don't have to love math. It doesn't have to be your favorite subject.
Yep.
But I do try to tell them, it's about problem solving and critical thinking. And so just looking at the fact that God gave us the ability to do that, to think critically and have all of these problem solving skills, is just crazy, because
Yeah.
that's not something that you know, I don't know, like, I don't know how much problem solving my cat sleeping behind me does. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know, like, no
exactly.
joke, but it's just a unique gift, and I think, yeah, if you're not gonna use the Pythagorean theorem every
Mhm.
day, which is probably true for most people, you do use those critical thinking skills every day, or we hope that you do. So, yeah, I think that God is kind of in all of that if you choose
Mhm.
to look at it that way.
That's awesome. All my experience with cats, it's basically their problem solving skills is trying to figure out how to get you to do something that they want to get done.
No,
That's
that's
how it
fair.
all works out.
That's fair.
Now, there are a lot of great Christian organizations and churches out there, but God calls us to represent Him wherever He calls us to. So, how do you connect your faith to your career in teaching high school students?
So this one I've had to think about a lot because
Mhm.
as someone that works for the state of North Carolina and
Mhm.
works for the public school system, I'm allowed to discuss my faith with my coworkers and
Mhm.
stuff like that. We do still have to be conscious to not really, try to push
Sure.
our religion on somebody else. But
Mhm.
then it shifts a little bit with our students because I think history classes have a clearer view that like you do not want to have a teacher that impresses their views on a kid too much,
Mhm.
even if it's not religious, because if you have a teacher, let's say, that's incredibly liberal,
Yeah.
you might feel as a student like you need to write articles or papers or essays that you know align with that teacher's view if you want to get a good grade.
Yeah.
Um, and while teachers ideally don't do that, unfortunately, there are students that feel that way, and there are teachers probably that do lean towards their
Yeah.
own ideas and stuff like that. So that's true for any teacher, but it pops up a lot for our social studies classes.
Yeah.
And then for us, or any teachers that are um, people that are religious, whether it's Christianity or
Mhm.
another faith, we have to be careful not to, again, like I said, push those views on a student. So for me,
Mhm.
it's a mission field where I can't go in there and say, hey, I'm a Christian. You should believe the same things I do, because I definitely don't
Yeah.
want to do that for any of them. But instead, I go in every day. I try to put a smile on my face, try to be
Mhm.
honest, build relationships with my students and my athletes, and talk about things like, hey, family and your own well-being is more important than doing your math homework sometimes, and letting those kinds of discussions bring up questions, because I'm honest with my kids. So like if
Yeah.
they say, hey coach, what'd you do over the weekend, I might honestly say, well, I went to church yesterday and I ran the slides for Sunday
Yeah.
service. That's fine. I'm allowed to say that,
Mhm.
and then hopefully that can lead to some other discussions. And if anything, even if no one ever asks me about my faith, maybe that person can graduate and say later, "I wonder why he was either so happy or so honest or whatever it was." So yeah, it's my mission field, and
Mm.
I don't always do it well, but I try really hard to go into most days being like, okay, I know there's opportunities, God, let me see them. Let me know that they're there. And when I miss them, please give them to me again the next day. So yeah,
I like that. Yeah, no, it's we are called essentially to be the hands and feet, right? So people we're called to be able to have people see Christ through us. And
yeah.
you're right, that's a hard thing to do sometimes, but it's our calling. And so
Mhm.
it's a joy. Doesn't always mean happy, but it's a joy, and those things
Right.
are different. So you mentioned this as a mission field. So have you had any struggles in your career due to your faith?
So I honestly don't think I've had many. The one thing
Great.
that came to mind, when I was looking over this question,
Mhm.
was just the idea that I do feel like sometimes I feel like I hear the phrase, well, don't judge me for this, followed
Mhm.
by some statement about something that this person does or something like that. Um, I have no idea if everybody else hears that statement a lot,
Mhm.
or if that's just, the time we're in where people feel judged. And so they say that.
I
There's a
think for
part of
us in our
me.
generation, it was, oh, bless their heart. And then you can say whatever you want, right? And then it didn't
Exactly.
matter.
Exactly. I had to explain that to someone the other day that was not from North Carolina. I was like, bless your heart is not
It's not a good
someone
thing.
being nice. No.
Yes, no.
I do feel like I've heard that a lot. So that might be one thing. But other than that, I've been incredibly fortunate, that I work with coworkers and bosses that have been really, really open and very, very considerate of all walks of life and all religions and stuff like that. And it's been a very good I've only worked at Cary High School in terms of my teaching career, so I'm sure that if I ever work somewhere else, it may be
Sure.
a different experience. But I've been very fortunate where I am, and I really haven't felt persecuted or looked down on for my views or anything like that.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Oh, so a flip side of struggles, even though there weren't too many struggles, what about a big blessing that you've had in your career due to your faith?
That's a good question. I think the number one thing would be overall just a security, like an
Mm,
idea, knowing that God is over and throughout all things.
mm,
Like that doesn't mean that I'm not going to lose my job one day or that I don't
sure.
have to work hard, but just the idea that like everything is working towards that good and that on the other
Yeah.
side of heaven everything's going to be perfect. That takes some stress away from
Yeah.
the day to day. Yeah, and that also somehow plays in my head. I don't know. I'm a very logical thinker, math
Mhm.
teacher.
Of course.
That says to me that like there are some things that like day to day, if we do our best, like if they don't get done, if that quiz doesn't get graded till one more day or something like that,
Yeah.
we can give ourselves that grace because
Mm,
God's given us that. So I'm definitely not someone that can say I never stress,
yeah.
but I do try very hard to embrace those moments and appreciate that God is over and in all things and put as much on him as I can
Mhm.
and do my best. So that's been a huge blessing, especially through the pandemic when everything was
Yeah.
super, super crazy. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, right? Our yokes may be heavy, but his is light, and so we can always lay it down at his feet. That's you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, well, speaking of stresses, what are some things we can pray about for you?
So I've got a big one. I just found out about a week ago
Mhm.
that I got accepted to NC State. Um,
Yeah, NC
I'm
State.
going, yes, I'm going to grad school.
Oh, awesome,
Um,
man.
I got accepted to the Master's of School Administration program. So one day I will hopefully be a school principal or assistant principal somewhere. And I start this May. So I'm very, very excited
Oh, that's so
to
awesome.
get things rolling. You'll have to get me some NC State red.
Oh no,
And
I got plenty of it in the closet. You're good. No worries.
let's go. It did break the hearts of my UNC family. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we've got a lot of Tar
That's
Heels
okay.
in the family, but yeah, I'm really excited. So that's a huge prayer request. Just that
Def-
that program goes well. It's really intense
mm,
because we have to do it while still teaching or while doing an internship,
yep.
just depending on the year. Um, yeah, and I guess just the day-to-day stuff, just
Mhm.
that we survive another crazy school year. We have ninth graders this year who have not had a full normal year of
Uh,
school since they were in fifth grade. So they kind of blipped through middle school. At best, some of them had like a you know first year that went until March,
yep.
and then a rocky end of eighth grade. But that's about it. So just helping those students and those families
Yeah.
adjust to what school looks like now is a really, really big thing. So those will be the top two, I think.
Definitely. We will definitely pray for those things for you. Thank you so much, Michael. It's a pleasure always talking to you, but I see you like every Sunday, so it makes it nice for me. But it's allowing other people to be able to get a chance to meet you and hear about some of the great things you do. Thank you so much for joining us in the Data for God series.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. And take care and God bless everybody. Until next time.